Hey everybody, it's your girl PJamma with PJamma Life. And today we have a really good roster of movies. We have Dune and we have oh my gosh, I did it again. It went out of my head. Blackest Night, Spiral, and Impeachment. So let's get to it. Let's talk. Let's say, hey, our fellas here. So why don't we start off with our guy who does all things Star Wars, the lightsaber himself. David, say hey to the people.
Zoom, 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 zoom. Hey, everybody. Can't wait to talk to you about these shows, especially one that I've been waiting so long to see. Cannot wait. You are in the right place at the right time this beautiful fall night.
All right. And the principal of all things Marvel. Patrick, say hey to the people.
Hey everybody, just remember fear is the mind killer.
Yeah.
And I cannot wait to talk about that because I'm super excited. So it's going to be a good show.
Okay, so these guys are raring to go. So why don't we just start off with Dennis Villeneuve's Dune.
Our warriors couldn't free Arrakis from the Harkonnens. But one day, by Imperial decree, they were gone. Why did the Emperor choose this path? And who will our next oppressors be?
House Atreides shall immediately take control of Arrakis and serve as its steward. Do you accept?
Life isn't a problem to solve, but a reality to experience. My road leads into the desert. I can see it.
Okay, why don't we start off with Pat, who's read the original in 19 whatever.
Early 80s. And I have read it multiple times since then because it is such a good book. If you haven't read the book, read the book. I'm just going to tell you that. I mean, I will tell you that this movie was a delight. And I came in there fully expecting to hate it because every time I've read a book, I go to the movie, and the movie is so far lacking. This book, if I was a purist, and I am to the most part a purist about the book because it's pretty darn good, and like I said, I've read it several times. If I was a purist, there were a few bits that were cut out, and they do make a difference later in the book. But he kind of took a coward's way out and got out halfway through the book, which is fine because the really interesting stuff, some of the stuff that I suspect would be harder to film, happens in the second half of the book. But that's okay. It's like the first time I saw The Fellowship of the Ring, which Peter Jackson did a terrible thing to The Hobbit. In fact, that is a noun that I use now, or a verb. When you hobbit something, it's when you really destroy it and make it really longer than it had to be. But he did such a good job when the first set came out, The Fellowship, the Two Towers, and the Return of the King, of really translating what you got reading it. And I remember seeing the trailers for that and getting chills up and down my spine because I'm like, oh my God, they've got the Battle of Minas Tirith looks right. I mean, this is the way I pictured it in my head. And I will tell you that they did the same thing with Dune. I watched this movie wanting to hate it because I knew there was going to be parts I didn't like and I thought was wrong. It was the canon, but it was gorgeous. Mm-hmm. It was true to the spirit of it. There were things in there that were the way I imagined them being. Like the Thopters were just, everything. Some of the casting choices, I'm still not real. I know Jason Momoa's a big character or a big actor now and everything. Not just physically big, but presence big. I didn't picture Duncan Idaho looking like him. Everybody else, pretty solid. I mean, I gotta tell you, I thought Jason Isaac was good as the Duke Leto. I mean, they got a lot of the detail. They got so many of the
that
details.
was Jason Isaac. Okay.
Oscar Isaac. I'm sorry,
Oscar Isaac. Okay.
It was Poe Dameron. Okay,
Whatever.
Poe Dameron, but an old Poe Dameron who is world weary and grayed, but such a good job at the casting. I thought everybody was really spot on. They got the feel of the future with the weird shaped ships, and everybody had their things, and then the shields. Shields were kind of weird, but reading the books, I kind of expected certain things, but not exactly. To be honest, I gotta tell you, I like David Lynch's shields better than I did these.
Oh, I love
the shields.
those crazy shields.
With it was like the Doctor Strange mirror dimension shields, and they had that kind of angular
terrible
stuff.
back then.
Very Pong of you, Patrick. Very Pong of you to like those two.
I like those a little bit better, but I thought it was, like I said, everything really caught the essence of the book without sacrificing too much of the actual narrative and stuff to time constraints or constraints about what you can build or make. It was gorgeous. It was beautifully shot. I mean, every shot was as beautiful as anything. Well, not as good as Lawrence of Arabia, but it was damn close. I'm just saying, for that whole desert feel, that there was just the sweeping panoramas, everybody, the suspensors working the way that I thought they would look, when the Sardaukar were falling, just, I mean, I could wax poetic about this for another 20 minutes, but I'm not going to do that to everybody who's watching this. Yeah, I'm just going to say that I loved it. And if you didn't see, I actually watched on HBO Max last night, and I am going to the theater to pay money to go see it again on a big screen because that's how good it was. So there you go. That's as good a recommendation as I can give you.
Yeah. David, tell us about what you thought. And then I'll have some questions for you guys too.
Okay.
To me, even though we're only on, and as a spoiler, this is Dune Part 1, but in so many respects, the circle is complete. Patrick mentioned Lawrence of Arabia. That was one of Frank Herbert's primary inspirations. There were many different pieces that brought this, but seeing that movie really inspired the novel. Read this book. This isn't just good science fiction, it's good literature. It's good fiction. I encourage everyone to read it. It's never more important today. I mean, it's never more important now than today. And it was written in 1965, and it speaks so much to our world. This was a brilliant movie. It is a beautiful movie, as Patrick was saying. It is, I have no question that this film was meant to be seen on a big screen. I watched it at home 3 times since Thursday night. Loving every bit of it. If you're a purist and you read through this book, you will see, oh man, I wish there was this scene. It's not in it. And this scene, it's not in it. And this aspect with Dr. Huey, or we didn't learn a little as much about the Mentats. And okay, that's all true. But what they have done, it's just majestic. And what we saw, you look at the Lynch film from 1984, the miniseries on Sci-Fi in 2000. I liked both. I think the Sci-Fi miniseries, the smartest thing that did was it said, you can't tell this story in 2 or 2.5 hours. Don't try. You will fail in terms of conveying the gravitas of this story in that amount of time. So the fact that we have a part 1 that gets us to kind of the midway point is pretty important. And I think it did a great job of setting the stage, the political aspect of this, the commentary on religion, the commentary on colonialism, and what has always not been fully understood unless you listen to Frank Herbert himself is the hero's journey can be a cautionary tale. We're not saying that yet, but this is just such a beautiful story, and I loved it. I mean, I won't say I wasn't jumping up and down like I did when Luke Skywalker made his appearance, his real true appearance finally in The Mandalorian. over what we saw in the sequels, but I jumped up and down in my heart seeing this beautiful book come to the screen in a way that's truly worthy of its work.
Yeah, and so I watched it a couple times. I watched it in the afternoon, and then I watched it at night. Definitely, if you can, watch it in the dark room. Go to the theater. I'm sure it will look amazing, particularly if you see it in IMAX, which I hear they shot in. It ought to just be out of this world amazing. But definitely you want to see it in all its glory. And if you are like me, who watched it on my TV, I really got a sense of what they were doing and the scale of it. And they shot on location. From what I understand, they didn't. A lot of that is not CGI. A lot of that are in deserts, and so you get the tactile feel of the desert as opposed to it being green screen. And I really liked how they used people of color in the in the movie. To If you're in the desert and you're talking about kind of desert power, desert issues, you might want to have people who look like people who live in the desert. So which in the what is it, 82 version, 84 version, they didn't, but it's still, when I look and I watch the 84 version a couple of times too, so I could see the difference. But I think where it suffered for me, what I didn't like is, in the 84 version, they gave you more of the political things that were going on. And this one didn't get into as much of it as I would have liked, because that was really interesting to me. Perhaps we'll see that in the sequel. And I was kind of, the first time I saw it and it stopped where it did, I was like, hey, I was kind of irritated because I was like, hey, man. But the director said that now he's glad he didn't film them back to back, because I think it gives him a chance to kind of breathe with it and then to come back and make any kind of adjustments that he needs to make. I thought the characters were really well cast. I didn't have any issues. I know, Pat, you thought Duncan should have maybe been someone else, but I really enjoyed Jason Momoa.
I like Jason Momoa as an actor and everything. He did not fit the picture in the description I had in my mind's eye since 1984.
Yeah, I kind of liked him as that, because in the 84 version, the guy was kind of slight. Now, I haven't read the books. I've read the comic, the omnibus version of the comic that came out, but I haven't read the book. And he just kind of, I thought he made a great fighter and someone who would teach Timothy Chalamet. Timothy Chalamet! I don't know. I mean, he's fine. His acting was really well done. It's just not who I had. I don't know. He's so slight.
Well, I mean, Paul is supposed to be a young boy, like adolescent, really throughout this entire thing. So he looks a lot older than what the book, portrays. In the book, he's like 15 or something. And Timothy Chalamet is obviously 20 something.
Yeah, and
I thought he did a great job, and I
just was kind of like, but
I thought he really embodied what the book. I thought that even though the actor's a little older, I thought he played the young man, and obviously and very candidly, his youth and kind of like needing to grow and kind of come into his own. Having Jason Momoa there with him. And that was it was like an impromptu line, not from the book, but just from the camaraderie of them. It's like, have you put it, and it's been in the trailer, so I'm not giving away too much. Like, hey, I've put on muscle. No, you haven't. He patted him and then he walked on. That was great because again, it said he's a boy growing to be a man.
Yeah,
In the book, I mean, he's got a lot of different avenues and options to go the different directions, the capacity that he has. But I thought he fit that role. Jessica Ferguson, oh my gosh. I don't
yeah,
even
she was.
she
Now
led this
she,
movie
to
and was
me,
awesome.
embodied, the Bene Gesserit. I mean, she's a great action star. I mean, she just is.
Yeah.
And so I could see her, really with that character. But one thing I was going to say was I really enjoyed the male relationships. It was very much they were affectionate towards each other. You could tell there was a lot of love and concern for each other. And you don't get that a lot of times in modern movies without it being sexualized in some kind of way. So that was really good to see. And that I like what they did with the Dr. Kimes. I like how they did that character. That made more sense to me at that point, and how they did the people of Arrakis. That really made a lot of sense. But I know people complain about it, but I really miss the internal monologue from the 84 to this one. I really miss that because it helped to drive the story, and you understood what was going on, where visually you had to pick up what was going on with the movie, but it made sense how this director did it. But for me, I kind of missed that because that gave you a lot of clues about kind of what was going on. And one thing I really liked was the what's his name? Who played Robin? Raban. Is that how you say his name? Raban?
Beast Raban, yeah. So Dave Bautista. Dave Bautista.
Dave Bautista. That made so much more sense. And I think that was Stellan Skarsgård playing.
Yes, it was.
Yes.
Baron Harkonnen.
Baron Harkonnen. And the way they did that without all that stuff going on and all that hot kind of homoerotic stuff that was going on,
but
that predation
that's
stuff.
In the book.
I was gonna say.
But you didn't need it. I mean, you didn't need it. And so you still got his evilness and his his just foul kind of nature. You got that from that without having that kind of old trope of the evil homosexual preying on various people.
Yes.
I really like that part because you got the essence of the guy without some of the gross stuff they had in the other movie. But I think that this one is successful in its own right. It's different. And so it'll be interesting to see what happens with the next one that comes out here soon. What were you going to say, Pat?
Well, yeah, the Harkonnen, they did expand the Dave Bautista role quite a bit because Raban is mentioned basically as a reference to him being a terrible person. You never get any actual scenes with him or whatever. It's all between the Baron and his as yet unshown other nephew, Fade Rotha, who was played by Sting in the first one, which I am really interested in. I want to see who they want to put in Fade, because that's a really cool role, because he could have, in the books, he was a step off of being the Kwisatz Haderach, that Paul became, because it was the same breeding line. Because actually, spoilers, anybody wants to change the channel.
Don't spoil it for people. Don't spoil it.
It's a book. It's a book. It's in the book.
Well, it's the second part of the book, which we don't know when's going to come out as a movie. So I think spoilers.
They haven't filmed anything, so it could be forever, or it could never even be made. That's the other bad thing that could happen. They just can't get the schedules together. They can't get Timothée Chalamet and Zendaya's schedules to mesh, and next thing you know, we don't have another movie, and this is what you get. It was great. I love it, but I wish I could see the rest of it. But the Lady Jessica, is actually the Baron Harkonnen's daughter. You don't
Oh,
know this,
yeah,
but you
that's
find
what
this out much later, because it's, because the Bene Gesserit breeding program that they've got going to try to distill humanity into this Kwisatz Haderach that becomes Paul Atreides.
Mm-hmm.
So, I mean, there's a lot of stuff going on. I mean, if you get into the books even further, into the next 2 or 3 books,
Right.
You find out that the Bene Gesserit are basically a political organization whose job is to elevate humanity and get them going in the right direction after the Great Migration, where after the stars. So, I mean, there's a lot of stuff going on there that they're doing, and then you also get all these other actors that we didn't even really touch on. They touch on the guild, basically, that the guild navigators need the spice. That's a big thing. There's the Tlaxu who are going to bring, which is why I thought in my personal opinion, this is why they got Jason Momoa to be Duncan Idaho, because he comes back later in the books, lots of times, and he's a big name that they can keep bringing back. And this is a guy, this is star power we can keep having back, even if we have to change all the other actors. We can keep him coming back. It's a great tie-in, So I thought about that.
And I think that the Bene Jesuit. How do you say it?
Bene Gesserit.
Jesuit. I really liked how they did it in this movie, more political as opposed to more mythical as they were in the original movie. And I thought that was a really great kind of addition, to highlight that feature of them. And they're kingmakers, right? They go around steering things to put people in power they think should be in power. So it's a really interesting take on. And also, I was pleased to see about how the power of women. So when they went to the Fremen and they tried to attack her, and she turned the tables on them real quick. I was like, you know what? It's good to see, the fighting skills being highlighted.
Well, they hinted at it with him saying, hi, leave me alone. I didn't know you knew the weirding way. And he says that, and you don't understand what that is because they give, context to the movie.
Yeah.
Now, I have context. Dave, you got context. You read the books. I read the book about the weird training that all the Bene Gesserit go through to control every little muscle in their body. And they've turned themselves into these basically badass living weapons that can make you do stuff through the use of the voice.
Yeah.
And they also have a breeding program in addition to running political stuff. So they're kind of a big deal, Yeah. And it's a women's order, so which is really cool. It's total woman empowerment, but they're low key about it, which is the most impressive part. And they know how to plan because they put all these legends on all these planets and stuff, so that if one of their people ever showed up, they could work the legends and find a place of safety, and become part of the culture, which they get into that later in the books. There's much more in the books. They kind of hint at it in this, but the weirding way was like their badass training that they went through, and she just kicked the strongest guy in the tribe's ass in front of all of the people,
which didn't sit well.
The lore and the legends of this, though, I think they did a great job of so many things. Oh, well, it's prophecy. Well, sometimes myths and stories are propagated for a purpose, and that's what we see. This movie really brought what was said in the book, out. So highlighting it if you missed it, which the other versions really didn't do that justice.
Yeah.
Right.
And also you see where, the Bene Gesserit are in terms of soldiers and their warrior status. But you look at, and this movie did a great job versus, say, the Lynch, which didn't as well. We see how good the Sardaukar are, this elite force that represents the Emperor. We're getting a taste of where the Fremen are, which another free men. Again, it's not that hard in that reference. But then you kind of see where the Bene Gesserit, from maybe they don't have the numbers, but they might be the most powerful in terms of warrior class of any in the universe. In that one little scene, you might see that. So where does that lead us with Paul? Spoiler alert for part 2.
Right. And I think the actress that they have for the Reverend Mother, Charlotte Rampling, who
Yes.
doesn't look like she's aged since Angel Heart.
No kidding. Yeah, I forgot. Oh my God, yes.
I'm like, girl, what you doing? I mean, she's a wonderful actress.
Yeah,
Everything
moisturizing, lots of
is
moisturizing.
intense and kind of spooky and just kind of like oily but delicious. You know, she's just amazing. So I mean, they really, the casting director, just picked people who could really do those words. We'll see about Zendaya. I think that I'm hoping with the next movie we'll see more of where she's at and how her character evolves and becomes much stronger. So do we have any final thoughts on Dune? Because I know you guys want to talk all night, but we got to hit a couple other things.
So easily.
Read it, see it, know it.
Yeah, definitely.
Such a good book.
Definitely.
Yeah, they better make a second one is all I got to say about it. That's my final thoughts on it. God help them if they don't make a second one because that was so good. Don't you leave me hanging. That is some bullshit. So, there we go.
Maybe you can tell Dennis Villanueva.
Give me his phone number. I'm on the phone.
Hey, man.
Right.
Pat Huey says you better make it or else. So, too much spice. So, okay, so let's move on and check out Amazon Prime's venture with the Blumhouse group with their feature Black as Night.
Summer. This one started out just like the last one and the one before that. That was the same summer I fought vampires.
The sun is a nuisance to no vampires. Survival in the daylight is possible with time and melanin.
There are rules. They can't come in.
We got steaks. Steaks? I said go away.
David, what you think?
I like to see updated vampire stories. Sometimes it's fun to see them as the period pieces or the Bram Stoker's, timeline there and, Victorian England or what have you. I like kind of an updated take on it. It's such a different contrast after what we've done. It's great for Halloween. It was fun. I like the special effects.
Yeah.
It was fun for Halloween. I'm not going to be waiting to read the book. I'm not reading the book on this one, brother. But it was fine. It was fun.
It's kind of like a Black Buffy the Vampire Slayer kind of movie.
There's a little. What was that film with that Eddie Murphy did? It was a Vampire in Brooklyn.
Oh Lord,
Vampire in Brooklyn.
Terrible.
So it kind of had that little bit of a vibe. Whatever you think about that flick.
So I really enjoyed it because New Orleans is probably my favorite American city. And I was there before I went in college, and I went, to the Essence Music Festival for a number of years. And then I actually saw it right after Katrina when they opened it up again. Yeah. And to see the devastation that Katrina had wrought and what had happened. And then I went back a few years later to see my beautiful city gentrified and to see what had been very historic and unique things about New Orleans now being, it's like Canal Street looks like, Times Square now. It's like Disneyland. I mean, it's all these chain stores and, it's all clean. Before it was kind of gritty and, you went around corners. You didn't quite know what was happening. You would roll thing in New Orleans.
Yeah,
But
that's
it was
true.
a beautiful, lovely, welcoming city with a long history of dark magic and all kinds of spooky things that could happen there.
It
And a
was the
lot of
most
that is,
international American city for the longest time. I mean,
oh
what
yeah,
Miami is today, New Orleans was there. I mean, it was a city you had people of mixed race. There was greater levels of diversity, greater levels of equality. You had pirates. You had pirates, Jean Lafitte saving the
yeah.
day,
You
saving
had
America there.
voodoo. You had people from Haiti. You had people with voodoo practices, Vadun, which is, I think, the correct thing. You had this whole. But what I found interesting about this movie too is kind of some of the colorism issues in the Black community, where light skinned people are more favored and dark skinned people are less favored, and I was really happy that they kind of brought out some of those dynamics and some of the dynamics of the history of slavery and how they could use how that's part of the story kind of triggered the narrative about the vampires and what were happening on the slave plantations that erupted in the vampires taking over. So I think that, and the commentary about some of the housing projects, how the original people have been pushed out in order to make way for this. And I thought one of the this comic said that, and I was like, wow, that's kind of true, is that this is like the Louisiana Purchase, but they didn't have to pay for anything. They just swooped in and took people's land and they didn't have to pay for it. And so it's very interesting in that sense. And then in the other sense, it's kind of like a teen kind of vampire story that's, kind of traditional and kind of cute. So I thought it could have been something that was that's Bloomhouse though. I'm always surprised and usually pleased by, what they put out, like Get Out. That was their big movie. Even their little dumb time travel Happy Death Day, that was kind of cute. And
Yeah.
this is another good entry. I know Pat would disagree, but I enjoyed Fantasy Island last year in The Invisible Man. I just kind of enjoy the things that they put out because it's always an interesting, different look at these takes on these traditional kind of horror stories that they bring in new, different elements. So for me, check out, Blackest Night. And I think it's something fun that, is a little bit different than the traditional vampire story, but not too far off.
And nothing to do with Green Lantern, as I thought it would, based on the title.
What?
Dark as night. Dark as night.
Okay.
The oath.
Part of his little mantra, he holds up
the oath. It's the
oath. Dark as night.
Moving on to our next spooky entry, or I guess part of our Halloween entry this week is Spiral, starring Chris Rock, another in the Book of Saw. Let's take a peek.
This package just came in.
For me.
Yeah.
What is that?
Playmate.
Hello, Detective Banks. I'm here to help reform the Metro Police, to remind them of their oath to the people of this city. One officer from your station refused to be reformed. He will not be the last to play my game.
If that Spiral is what I think it is.
Jigsaw? Wait, I thought the Jigsaw killer was dead.
Somebody watched The Wire. This is some New Jack City shit. God damn.
Hello, Detective Fitch. I want to play a game.
Saw franchise. I don't know. I think this is what, the 8th movie or something, or maybe 9th.
Like
I don't know. It's been a ton of them. David, what'd you think?
Saw is gory. It's gory. Don't like that aspect.
Yeah.
Chris Rock, showing some more drama.
Yeah.
I'll give him that. He's showing a dramatic chomp. I mean,
Yeah.
I think there is a lot of seriousness and kind of pain in comedy, and I think he's a brilliant comedian.
Mm-hmm.
So I think it kind of makes sense for him to channel in that regard. I could do without anything of the Saw franchise, but it was, so it was neat to see. It was neat to see Chris Rock, but not one that I'm gonna. I guess I like the vampire movie better than this.
Yeah, and I thought that I was actually surprised. I mean, I don't know if I like these type of movies. I don't like slasher kind of flicks.
Yeah.
So I was mainly looking at it to see how Chris Rock and Samuel L. Jackson would do in this horror kind of franchise. And I thought they did great. I really enjoyed them. I thought there was enough of a story to propel it, and it was only 93 minutes long, and that's with credits. So you're not getting a whole lot. It's not keeping you, grossed out for 2 hours like some of these movies. But I thought Chris did a great job in acting, and Samuel L. Jackson, of course. And I thought the story was interesting. I mean, I don't like all that gory slasher stuff they got going on, but I did like the story. I thought that the person who was the unmasked as the villain, I was like, what the hell kind of rationale is this? It was kind of like, huh? But I thought that the acting was really well done, and I thought that the themes of it was kind of interesting for today. So, I don't think police are getting that good at it. So, it's taking a different kind of look at the system, and I think it had some interesting things to say. So, where it's not like super fantastic, but I think seeing Chris Rock in a different genre than we're used to seeing him in. He did it earlier this year with Fargo, and that series with his story in it was fantastic. And I highly recommend that you go and take a look at Fargo this last season. I think it's the 4th season of Fargo that Chris Rock is starring in. That was the only season I've ever seen, and I was riveted the whole time. So I think we'll see more really good, interesting things coming from him in the future as he kind of pivots from, straight comedy to these more nuanced roles. I want to see him in a romantic comedy. That's what I'm really looking forward to see him do. So, it's probably a mixed bag on Saw, but I didn't think it was too bad. And what does Dwayne say that Spiral looks interesting? Yeah, okay, Dwayne DeMarcos. But definitely, I think you should watch it to check out the different kind of take on the Saw franchise, if you're into that kind of thing. If not, well, there's a whole bunch of other things for you to watch. Okay, so now we've come to the political hour. The very interesting part of, now we're getting to the meat of the meat, the juice of the juice, the actual impeachment. So let's take a look at a peek at this week's episode.
They're gonna ask about the girl, sir.
Let them ask whatever the hell they want. I have nothing to hide.
think that a little woman like you can sit across from the President of the United States and get justice?
Star's new gambit. This time he's saying I had an affair with an intern, and then I asked her to commit perjury.
Is there something you need to tell me?
No, I would tell you. You know I would. But nothing happened.
We have a deal. Judge Starr will sign that as well, and we'll fax it back your way.
So I'm thinking I just admit it, apologize, kill the story. But I can't, because it would destroy Hillary. I don't know what to do.
Well, let me help you with that.
We gave our word. We can't go back on.
I've made up my mind. No deal.
This was a good one because if you remember anything, you probably remember President Clinton getting on TV and completely denying that he had no sexual contact with this woman with conviction.
Doubled down on it.
I mean, triple down. He put his whole foot and body in it. I was like,
Wasn't me.
Wow.
The Shaggy defense.
Yeah, I was like, hey, I mean, we all remember it. It was just like, damn, he really lied. You know, and it was like, dude, just come out. When he first said, I was like, no, don't lie. Don't lie. Just say what you did. It wasn't illegal and you were in a consensual sexual relationship. And now let's move on. And he probably would have been okay. But it's always the lie. You could come back from the truth, but a lie is hard.
Well, it was
come back.
perjury at a time when people still took that under oath meant something. Now, not so much. But
Yeah, I
perjury
mean, that's
was a
what I'm
big
saying.
deal.
It's the lie is what people don't want you to do. Don't lie. Tell the truth, and you can come back from it.
Right.
But a lie. So it was interesting to see how this played out. But I thought it was really good how they talked about the just distasteful comments that the late night hosts would make. And, you know, seeing it now, you're kind of like, you know, none of you guys, and all of them had sexual harassment cases against them. You know, that's what's so, you know, like two-faced from these guys is you're cracking jokes and distasteful jokes. Meanwhile, you're running around looking up skirts and sexually harassing your female employees so much. But you know, I thought it was interesting. David, what'd you think?
Well, you know, the title of this episode, if I recall, is Assassination. And
yeah, the assassination of Monica Lewinsky
is very, very appropriate. And I can see that everybody was assassinated in this.
Yeah.
You know, and when you see the way that the Drudge Report and everything, it was painful and powerful. And the very rare thing, you saw something here, an example, and I couldn't remember why, but I remember in retrospect, there was a lot of criticism for Lewinsky's initial attorney, the family attorney. And you see why. Here he was a guy, he was not used to dealing with federal prosecutors, and he's thumbing his nose at them. He might have been right, but you do not take a victory lap on those guys. And
well,
did
until it's signed. After they signed it, do whatever. But he broke the cardinal rule of any negotiation.
Right.
You know,
and Ken Starr broke a pretty big rule too.
Yeah, and I was totally disgusted.
You can't. I mean, you can't. No one's going to negotiate with you in good faith again. Which again, it speaks to. Well, again, his tenure as president of Baylor, I think, condemns him even more so than this.
Yeah.
But it speaks to, again, all of this. You're gunning for a young woman in her 20s over this in a way to get somebody. and it's just horrific. It's a train wreck you can't take your eyes off of, but it's wonderfully done. It's a great cast. It's a powerful thing, and it really sees how everything kind of set up then for today in so many respects.
Yeah.
Love seeing Dick Morris come back.
Dick Morris. I was trying to remember his name, but that scandal was like, dude. And I think, wasn't it at the Ritz-Carlton again?
I think so. It is truly a place of scandal.
That daggum Ritz-Carlton, that thing, and him, what's his name? Marv Alpert?
Marv Alpert.
Yeah, and the Lewinsky.
I'm sorry. Excuse me. I've got to go. I apologize.
Yeah. Okay, we'll see you next week. That Ritz-Carlton is just legendary for stuff going on there. But the episode really was a good episode when you reflect now, to be able to see the frenzy that it created. You know, there hadn't been something like that, you know, in history where a president actually people told about sexual affairs. And before that, it was kind of like everybody knew what was going on, but nobody would really come out and confess it, or the newspapers wouldn't report on it. So it just created this whole big drama and frenzy around this situation. So it's really interesting to see, and that's kind of the birth of these kind of
the 24-hour news cycle.
The 24-hour news cycle, where they have to have something juicy to keep the news going, and meanwhile you get all these frenzies about things that aren't as important as some of the real things that are important to move America along. So that was impeachment of this week. I think we only have 1 or 2 more episodes of it, and it'll be interesting to see where they go, because I'm really hoping that they talk more about Hillary Clinton's kind of reaction to all of this, and what's going to happen. I think the commercial for next week is kind of she's throwing stuff at Bill Clinton. I think she finally figures out the truth about what he's been actually doing. I mean, I'm sure,
Yeah.
She knows her man.
I don't see anything. Nothing's going on here. No.
Yeah. So it ought to be good these next couple of weeks. So we'll see what happens. But that's our show for this week. Next week we will have it's a spooky session because it's the night before Halloween. So we will look at Halloween Kills, the new Halloween movie starring Jamie Curtis 40 years later with this character and Michael Myers. I mean, this dude is like a ghost, a murdering ghost at this point, given all the movies he's been in. And then impeachment, and then we're going to talk about what our favorite scary, spooky Halloween movies are. And so join us, and you tell us what are your scary, spooky Halloween stories are. And we'll try and scare each other and to see. So, Pat, you got any final words for us?
Read the book. Read the book. Dune is such a good book. If you haven't read it, if you're out there watching this, turn off the TV for a little bit. I know we never tell you to do that. Turn the TV off. Read this book. It is so good.
Well, Pat, maybe you could come on my other YouTube show, and we could talk about the book and the differences between the book and the movie, and and do a little show on that. Maybe we can do a separate show on that, just to do Dune, so people can understand the differences and why it's important to read the book as opposed to just watching the movies. because it's always richer in the pages of a book.
It
So there's a whole feast in the pages of a book, and you get a cracker. A teeny tiny taste in a movie. So definitely check it out from your local library. You can also check it out on Hoopla, and there's a video on my channel to show you what that's all about, how to get into that. But your local library, check it out. So thank you for joining us this week, and we'll see you for a scary episode next week. Say bye to the people, Pat.
See you guys.
See you next time. Bye.